بس مآب ووالد ومنفس قدوس أحد وأملاك آمين. بس مآب ووالد ومنفس قدوس أحد وأملاك آمين. بس مآب ووالد ومنفس قدوس أحد وأملاك آمين. Good morning, Malcolm Edil. Good morning. So on with the chapter. It's very eventful at the moment with everything going on with Jacob's 12 sons. So going to continue in that vein. So Genesis 38 of the Ethiopian Bible. Give thanks for these few words. And it comes to pass at that time that Judah has gone down from his brothers and turns aside to a man, an Abdulite, whose name is Hira. And Judah sees there the daughter of a man, a Canaanite, whose name is Shoah, and takes her and goes into her. And she conceives and bears a son, and he calls his name and she conceives again and bears a son and calls his name Onan. And she adds again and bears a son called Shelah. And he was in Chezib in her bearing him. And Judah takes a wife for his firstborn, and his name is Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, is evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and Yahweh puts him to death. And Judah says to Onan, go into the wife of your brother, and marry her, and raise up the seed to your brother. And Onan knows that the seed is not reckoned his, and it has come to pass, if he has gone into his brother's wife, that he has destroyed it to the earth, so as not to give seed to his brother. And that which he has done is evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and he puts him also to death. And Judah says to his daughter-in-law Tamar, abide as a widow to your father's house, until my son Shelah grows up, for he said, lest he die, even he like his brothers. And Tamar goes out and dwells in her father's house, and the days are multiplied, and the daughters of Shua, Judah's wife, dies. And Judah is comforted, and goes up to his sheep shearers, he and Hira, his friend, the Abdulite, to Timnath. And it is declared to Tamar, saying, behold, your husband's father is going up to Timnah to shear his flock. And she turns aside the garments of her widowhood from off her, and covers herself with a veil, and wraps herself up, and sits in the opening of Enyam, which is by way of Timnath, for she has seen that Shelah has grown up, and she has not been given to him for a wife. And Judah sees her, and reckons her for a harlot, for she has her face covered. And he turns aside to her by the way, and says, please come, let me come into you, for he has not known that she is his daughter-in-law. And she says, what do you give to me, that you may come into me? And he says, I send the kid of the goats from the flock. And he says, do you give a pledge until you send it? And he says, what is this pledge that I give you? And she says, your seal and your ribbon and your staff, which is in your hand. And he gives to her, and goes into her, and she conceives to him. And she rises and goes, and turns aside her veil from off her, and puts on her garments of her widowhood. And Judah sends a kid of the goats by the hand of the friendship of the Amdalite, and receive a pledge from the hand of the woman, and he has not found her. And he asked the men of the place, saying, where is the separated one? She is Enyam, by the way. And they say, there has not been in this place a separated one. And he turns back to Judah and says, I have not found her. And the men of the place have also said, there has not been in this place a separated one. And Judah says, let her take to herself, lest he becomes despised. Behold, I sent this kid, and you have not found her. And it comes to pass that 3 months after that it is declared to Judah, saying, your daughter-in-law Tamar has committed fornication. And also, behold, she has conceived in fornication. And Judah says, bring her out, and she is burned. she is brought out, and she has sent to her husband's father, saying, to a man whose these are, I am pregnant. And she says, please discern who these are, the seal, the ribbons, and the staff. And Judah discerns and says, she has been more righteous than I, because that I did not give to her my son Shelah, and he has not added to her to know her again. And it comes to pass in the time of her bearing, that behold, twins are in her womb. And it comes to pass in her bearing, that one gives out a hand, and the midwife takes and binds on his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this has come out first. And it comes to pass, as he draws back his hand, and behold, his brother has come out. And she says, what? You have broken forth. The breach is on you. And he calls his name Perez. And afterwards his brother has come out, on whose hand the scarlet thread, and he calls his name Zerah. For these few words I give thanks, blessed love. Yeah, again, that's a very impactful chapter. A couple of chapters ago, there was another genealogy chapter, and it feels like this is a genealogy chapter of sorts, but rather than the big overview of saying who's the son of, who's the son of, who's the daughter of, this is kind of getting inside those relationships and seeing, quite frankly, how messy they are. Excuse me. So it kind of shifts from Joseph yesterday, and this chapter shifts to Judah, one of Jacob's other sons. And the overview of the story, just to recap, is that his Judah's son marries a woman called Tamar. The son dies, and to understand this, you have to kind of understand the priestly traditions of the time. The Levites, the Levite tradition was that if a husband dies, then the brother, if he has one, then takes that woman as a bride, and and marries her. So what happened here is that it happened basically twice. So the brother died, the next brother took Tamar as a wife, and then he died. And then the next brother took Tamar as a wife, then he died. And it said that they were both evil in the eyes of God, and they both died. So Judah didn't want his youngest son, Shelah, I think his name was, to take Tamar as a bride, because he is worried that he was going to die as well. So he basically sent Tamar to go live back with her father. And then Judah's own wife dies, and then he's in mourning, and he goes to tend his sheep. And then, as it says here, that Tamar finds out that Judah is in the area tending his sheep, and she basically tricks him. She dresses up as a prostitute and sleeps with him. She's in disguise and gets pregnant by Judah, her father-in-law, because she says that actually you didn't do right by me. You were meant to honor me as a woman. I came into your household, but you just sent me back away and left me basically destitute. So she basically tricked Judah and became pregnant with him. And when Judah finds out that actually that was his daughter-in-law that he slept with, and she wasn't actually a prostitute, he actually relents and he apologizes to her and says that you are more righteous than I, because you have, I can't remember the actual words, but basically you are more righteous than I, because I didn't fulfill my promise to you like I was said. So Tamar, even though it's very unconventional, Tamar actually stands up for her rights, and she's one of the examples in the Bible, I think, of very strong women. We're talking about women in earlier chapters. A very strong woman. And actually the significance of this, you might think, okay, well, this is all messy, but what's the significance of this? The significance of this is that it's from this lineage that King David is descendant, Jesus Christus, Jesus Christ is descendant, and then again, ultimately, for those of us of a Rastafari disposition, the 225th descendants of the emperors and empresses in Ethiopia, ending with His Majesty Haile Selassie. So this is a very significant chapter, and it's not just put here randomly. So even though it's really unconventional, it involves deceit, as we've seen before, and lots of other chapters and twists and turns, and God is involved in these interventions. It's still really messy, but actually through that messiness comes the root of David, the actual lineage now that we see from Abraham, from Isaac to Jacob, and now to Judah, and then Judah's relationship with Tamar, and then that union is actually the start, if you like, or not the start, but it's the precise point where it can be identified that Judah is the descendant of, or the ancestor of, King David and Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ. So really significant, and obviously there's other kind of understandings having to bring to this to understand it. But yeah, so that is, so I'll leave it there really. I guess probably run out of time for more bigger understanding, because there's a lot that can be taken from that. But just to say that the codes of the Bible, and you know how it's written and why certain things in there aren't always manifested until much later in the Bible, and also after the Bible itself, when we look at the 225th descendants of King Solomon and Queen of Sheba that you have in the Ethiopian lineage, which are all descended from this moment. So really interesting historical document, you could call this. And for all its messiness, it's also just full of intrigue, and you know, we know life isn't messy, so we know life is messy. So the Bible stories of individuals also reflects that, really. So out of messiness comes beauty. I will leave it there on that final word. Give thanks. God willing, have a blessed day.